We're good? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call the meeting of the Diversity Committee to order, please. My name is Blanca Lopez. I am the chair of this committee, and I would like to acknowledge my committee members who are present this afternoon. We have Neil Zuckerman, and we have Dr. John Ross Rizzo with us. I believe Mr. Chu should be joining us shortly, and thank you for joining us, Jerry Brigham. Ms. Valdivia is not here today, but we do have a quorum. Ms. Zapata, are there any public speakers?
Good afternoon.
There you go.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. We have EPEC Fulford and Mark Frazier. EPEC, do we have any speakers this afternoon?
Good afternoon. We have 2 members of public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and the fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. The first speaker will be Charlton D'Souza, followed by Maddie Bucky's Highline.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charlton D'Souza. I'm the president of Passengers United. So this is the Diversity Committee. Why is diversity important? It's important because New Yorkers make up diversity. And congestion pricing discriminates against people because you're charging poor and middle class people a fee to do business, to go to work, and the subway system is not sufficient enough. The bus system is not sufficient enough, and the commuter rail system is too expensive for people to access. So there's bus redesigns happening now, and the bus redesigns that are happening in Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Staten Island, they should be competitive with car travel, and that's where equity comes into play. So I would encourage all of you to go to our Passengers United YouTube channel and watch our training video. We talk about equity in transportation planning, and that's what's missing from the Queens bus redesign, and that equity is what's missing from congestion pricing. What about communities in transit deserts who don't have adequate transit service? So I'm glad that the governor postponed congestion pricing, but we all know it's going to come back because of all the lobbyists that are, literally lobbying you guys to vote as a board on Wednesday for congestion pricing. And I would say, no, don't do it. There's other ways to fund the MTA. I've been attending these meetings now for the last 18 years. So the MTA was the 5th largest debtor in 2008 under Governor Patterson. Why is that? And since then, everything is ballooned to even higher amounts. So, why should we give the MTA more money when it can't handle money? And you board members have an important job to play. And this is where equity, diversity, and fairness comes into play. Please do not support congestion pricing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Our next and final speaker will be Maddie Bucky's Highline.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Lopez, and to the committee members. This is Maddie Bucky's Highland with you. Well, I want to speak today about diversity and accessibility. With Disability Pride Month next month coming up, it's important to realize that disabilities are part of diversity. As someone who's living with autism for the past 23 years, it's important to recognize that disabilities rights are humans' rights. It did not take long for the ADA to come out. On May 9th, 1989, a U.S. senator by the name of Tom Harkin, a Democrat from Iowa, sponsored a bill called the Americans with Disabilities Act. And on July 26th, 1990, President George Herbert Walker Bush, a World War II veteran, signed the ADA into law, prohibiting discrimination. Anyway, that's all I have to say for this month. God bless each one of you. Thank you. Back over.
Chair, that concludes the public comment session.
Thank you, IPEC, and thank you to the speakers this afternoon. The next item on our agenda is to approve the meeting minutes, but before I do that, I just wanted to congratulate Lourdes for her inclusion on the City and State's 2024 Bronx Power 100. So it was lovely to see your picture and a nice
Thank you for that.
write-up. So congratulations. Everybody knows that this committee meets on a quarterly basis, so we are approving the April 29th, 2024 meeting minutes. May I have a motion in a second? Thank you, Mr. Suckman. Thank you, Mr. Risen. All in favor? Aye. Meeting minutes are approved. And we move on to any updates on the 2024 work plan?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The work plan can be found on pages 6 through 9 of the committee workbook. We do have 2 updates that are proposed. The first is with respect to the 5-year DEI strategic plan, which began on July 1st and ends on June 30th of 2024. We will be reporting the first year's progress as well as any second-year modifications of the plan during the September Diversity Committee meeting. We're meeting with the agencies and recording our first-year progress now, and we've moved the update from this meeting to the September meeting accordingly. And then with respect to the committee charter review, which was also scheduled for June, all the charters were reviewed in the corporate governance meeting in December of 2023, so there were no recommended changes to any of the charters. The Corporate Governance Committee, which actually approves any changes to the committee charter, will next meet in November, so we will review the charter prior to the September meeting. December will be the appropriate time for the next review, so that item has been moved as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the changes to the work plan? If not, we can move on to the executive summary.
Thank you. So this afternoon, I will be leading our presentation and discussion with the support of my colleagues and the leadership team at DDCR. I'm joined this afternoon by Deputy Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer Dr. Rosalind Green, who's also joined by our D&I Director Barbara Cockfield, Deputy Chief CDO for Tech Operations, DBE Certification and Outreach Christine Norman, Deputy Chief for Contract Compliance Ray Burke, and I'm also pleased to share that Cherie Owens, who served as our acting CDO of the Small Business Mentoring Program, was formally appointed in that role as of May 22nd. She's an invaluable member of the team and seamlessly stepped into the leadership role. We're very thrilled to have her leadership on a permanent basis. We also, yes, congratulations, Cherie. We are also joined by some of our agency chiefs. We have Vanessa Moses from MTA Bus, James Keys, from New York City Transit, as well as Myra Bell from Metro North, and Alana Smith-Pizarro, who's our senior director. So I'm really pleased to have the support of our talented team here. We have 4 primary agenda items today, which are going to include an overview of DDCR's programs and target constituencies, as well as a peek into our calendar year 24 goals. We are, of course, be reporting on our fiscal year MWBE, DBE, and SDVOB activities and accomplishments, and noting that we will be reporting on the fiscal year for the state contracting, which ended March 31st, and we're in the process of vetting our final numbers, so that will be completed by the early fall, though we don't expect much movement in that. We'll report on our Q1 activities for the Small Business Mentoring Program, as well as our 23-24 EEO activities that are focused on workforce demographic statistics and highlighting the hard work of our employee research group. So we wanted to start the discussion just going through a little bit what DDCR is and does. I know some of this will be repeated for some members, but we thought it'd be important just to check in. You tend to hear a lot of acronyms thrown out quite a bit, and so we wanted to just touch base and go through these. Our department is charged with the development and implementation of proactive diversity, equity, and inclusion activities for the MTA's workforce, our business partners, as well as our customers. And we're proud to champion the importance and values of a diverse and inclusive MTA. Our focus and programs are centered on 4 key partnership groups: businesses, employees, our customers, and overall MTA stakeholders. We have programming that's tailored to each of these partnership groups, which we're going to review. So our work with respect to small businesses takes place on the direction of various state and federal programs, many of which you've heard mentioned repeatedly. We'll start with NYS MWBE, which is the New York State Minority and Women's Business Enterprise Program. You hear that often. The authorized jurisdiction, the authorizing legislation is Executive Law Article 15A, and that establishes the authority to assign goals for the participation of minority and women-owned businesses in New York State contracting opportunities. The MTA, as well as the other 96 state agencies and authorities, are subject to Article 15A and reportable to the governor on our activities and efforts to achieve the state's goal of 30% MWB participation in our contracting. That figure was established by the New York State Disparity Study, which analyzed New York State contracting data and developed methodologies to determine the appropriate rate of contracting in gender and race-neutral environments. The MTA, it's important to note, has exceeded this 30% goal for 4 years and counting, so we're very proud of our progress. The New York State SDVOB program is similar to the MWBE program, but focused on service-disabled veterans. It is race and gender neutral, and the state has established a 6% goal for SDVOB certified businesses. The Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, which is DBE, is a federal program which focuses on socially and/or economically disadvantaged individuals for certification purposes. It relies on economic indicators for certification and is also race and gender neutral. The MTA SBMP is a small business mentoring program, which you've heard us discuss repeatedly and we'll provide you some updates on today. And then lastly, the MTA SBFP refers to the Small Business Mentoring Program Federal Edition, which has higher contract thresholds for participation. So again, during our conversations, you'll hear a lot of these acronyms thrown out. We thought it'd be helpful to just do a quick recap. With respect to our EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity Programs, I'd like to ask Dr. Green to provide us an overview.
Thank you. The Equal Employment Opportunity Program is the program that is a proactive plan that we look at every 4 years and submit to the FTA for their approval. I say proactive is because what that plan does is it's a forward look. We look to see who's out there that's available, that can partake on our employment opportunities that we have at the MTA. Based on that figure and the internal workforce, we determine whether or not we are being fully inclusive in our hiring practices. What most people see us as is the department that actually investigate complaints. That's the reactive part. But if we do a very good job in our proactiveness and following our plan and looking at who's out there, looking at any decision that touches our employees, then we prevent those complaints from happening at the end of the day. So that's what the EEO plan is about. You have a slide there that kind of gives you the circular language, but it is a proactive plan that focuses on our workforce and every decision that impacts our employees and potential employees, the applicants that would like to come in and work for the MTA. So now we also have a plan that focuses on our customers, communities, and that plan is our Title VI plan. Our Title VI program is one that we submit to the FTA every 3 years. That program has us look at every decision that's made by the MTA to look at the impact on the minority and low-income communities. Those decisions could encompass fare changes, service modifications, any activities that touch any of our federal funding. We look at those activities to see what is that impact and are we being inclusive and equitable to our minority and low-income communities. Again, this is a proactive plan. We don't wait until the decision is made and then review what impacts were there. We look ahead of time to see what are the impacts, what are the potential scenarios that we could also apply before making the final decision. And that is part of what we do with our Title VI plan. And these are abbreviated conversations regarding these plans. So we also have our first ever, and we have talked to the board to the committee a couple of times about this, our first ever 5-year DEI strategic plan. the first one that we've had for the MTA. So we're very proud of this document. So the first year would be completed in June. June 30th of this year will be the completion of the first year. We have 4 to go. We have briefed the committee on the plan here. We did bring a couple of extra booklets in case anyone does not have a copy of that plan. That is a state directive from Executive Order 187. You will be getting more information about the initiatives that we are going to, that's already part of the plan and where we are in our progress towards the completion of those initiatives. Again, the DEO division within DDCR oversees DDCR oversees plans that impacts every decision that's made by the MTA, whether it's going to impact a vendor or a contractor or a potential vendor, potential contractor, or an employee, potential employee, community, customer, potential customer. All of those decisions have an impact on diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and just the overall value that the MTA has for our entire tri-state area.
Thank you, Dr. Green. And then just to briefly go over the DDCR 2024 departmental goals. So we have a number of ambitious goals that are designed to help advance our diversity and inclusion goals at the MTA across all areas of engagement, starting with our first goal, which includes the full integration of a CMTA system that will allow for accurate and uniform complaint and data collection throughout the various MTA towers. Dr. Green has led the team in the integration of the system that will, for the first time, provide us the opportunity for more accurate data tracking and reporting. Our second goal speaks specifically to our small business mentoring program, and as you'll hear later in this presentation, the team is on track to deliver most or all of its goals by the end of Q3. The third goal is focused on increasing the number of DBE firms for which we are securing DBE certification and streamlining our processing. You'll hear more about our success in the relevant slides. Goal 4 relates to our marketing efforts to ensure appropriate representation of MWBE, DBE, and SDVOB firms, which is critical. And Christine Norman is leading the recruitment of a new director of business outreach who will focus on community engagement, with a goal to increase the number of firms that will be available to work with us here at the MTA. We are also in the process of having active discussions with Empire State Development to cross-train our certification staff in order to support the firms that are interested in securing New York State certification. Goal 5 speaks to our contract compliance activities, establishing standard operating procedures to implement data management systems so that we can again have some accurate data collection and analysis. And then the last goal really looks at the overall structure of DDCR, identifying opportunities to strengthen our own talent pool in addressing longstanding vacancies, as well as a backlog of some complaints that we have to address. And to that end, again, Dr. Green and her team has done an outstanding job of focusing on a number of key vacancies. We filled EO investigator positions, as well as leadership within certain towers. We've had 5 new investigators, agency chief keys, and 3 deputy chief positions have also joined us recently, and all of these positions are incredibly difficult to fill, finding the right mix of skills and experience. And again, I tip my hat to Dr. Green and her team for their ability to get these positions filled. We can move on to the next section, unless there are any questions from the committee members. So on 2023-24 reporting activities, I'll ask Deputy Chief Ray Burke to speak to contract compliance, payments, and goal attainment, and then Christine Norman to speak to outreach, certification activity, and our success stories. Ray, if you could, please.
Sure. Good afternoon. As far as contract compliance is concerned, my unit monitors MWBE, DBE, MWBE contract compliance. My unit consists of about 13 staff members. Most of the heavy lifting is done by the managers. There's about 7 managers. And as of March, we're monitoring about 1,300 contracts, which comes to an average of about, a minimum of about 150 contracts per manager. They also conduct site visits, and as of March, we've conducted about 151 site visits, which is an average of about 14 site visits per month. In addition to that, compliance also includes the daily monitoring of these contracts to make sure that they're meeting their respective goals. We monitor heavily at the 50% mark, but we actually start at the 25% mark. As far as site visits are concerned, we do site visits. They're both virtual and on-site, where we meet with the actual subs to make sure that the subs are actually doing the work that they're contracted to do. And as a part of contract compliance, there's always cases where we're looking at waivers that are submitted by prime contractors, because not all contracts can meet the goal. So we review those waivers for proper justification, and all those waivers are required to be approved by Lourdes. And if they're state waivers, they go as far as the governor's office. Next slide. Getting into the numbers, as far as DBE awards are concerned, at this present time, we're at a 15% awards against the overall awards to the federally funded contracts. So far, we are trending towards $350 million in DBE awards, which is less than the 20% goal. Last year, we were at 16%. Over the last 2 years, these shortfalls have been driven by our new model of design build. As far as contract awards are concerned, that basically means that, well, the problem with the design build contract concept is that we can't really award contracts to subcontractors because at the time of award, the actual design is not finalized. So over time, they become finalized, and that's when we build our contract awards. So we expect those numbers to go up as these designs become finalized. Next. MWBE and SDVOB, so far we're at 34% MWBE and 7% SDVOB. Right, we're trending towards $750 million in MWBE payments and 40 million in SDVOB payments. And we're currently achieving 4% more than the 30% goal. As Lourdes had mentioned, this will be like the 4th year that we've achieved the governor's goal as far as MWBE is concerned. And we're 1% above the SDVOB goal. Next. Right now, I want to get into the top awards as far as prime awards and subcontract awards. As far as top prime awards, the top MBE award for the period of April 2023 to March of 2024 was to CRV Associates, $57 million. Right, they're an electrical contractor, and that was awarded on a New York City Transit C&D contract. The top WBE award was to Externet Works, $15 million. Right, that was also on a New York City Transit C&D contract. They do computer-related services. The top SDVOB Prime Award was to Whitewood Renovations LLC. It was for $1.3 million. Once again, on another New York City Transit C&D contract. They do carpentry, they're a carpentry contractor. And the top DBE award was to Voltramp Electrical Contractor. And it was for another New York City Transit C&D contract. As far as subcontract awards are concerned, the top MBE subcontract award was to FCS Group LLC, $20 million. This was on a B&T C&D contract. It was they do painting and abatement. The prime on that contract was American Bridge Commodore joint venture. The top WBE award went to Northeast Structural Steel, $14 million. That's on a B&T C&D contract for bridge construction. The prime was Rosani ASW joint venture. The top SDVOB Subcontract award went to Citadel Electrical, an electrical supplier, on a B&T C&D contract. The prime contractor was American Bridge Commodore also. And the top DBE subcontract award went to Dogner Hughes and Associates, Inc. for $32 million. That was on a New York City contract, New York City C&D contract. It's an electrical contractor, and the prime was Judd Lab. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ray. So between these two, we have about 104 million, over 104 million in prime award contracts awarded to these firms, as well as another 100 million in subcontracting awards, which is really impressive when you consider the level of work and the dollar value of the contracts to these firms. I'll now ask Deputy Chief Christine Norman if you could speak to, please, the non-construction. I'm sorry, we had a question?
Yeah, Mr. Burke, when you were talking about monitoring, you said something about closing out 14 contracts. Were these 14 contractors that were in non-compliance that you removed, or? It
No,
was in
actually,
the first slide.
the first slide. No, that was site visits, actually. We do
Yeah.
site visits.
Yeah, and then you said you closed out 14
Oh, I'm
contracts.
sorry. If I said closed out, I mean.
Yeah.
Yes, we do close out contracts. We closed out 14 contracts during the course of the year. So the closeout process is after the contract's been closed by the agencies. What we do is we make sure that all the subcontractors have been paid what they're saying they've been paid in the system before we can actually close out the contract.
Okay, so then everything that you've monitored, everything's been in compliance, then you haven't had to remove anybody?
Excuse me, repeat that?
So everybody that you monitored has been in compliance and you haven't had to remove anybody? This was 14 successful closeouts?
Yo, those are, yes.
Okay.
Those contracts are just contracts that are closed by the agencies as far as the agency's work is concerned. But once they do what they have to do as far as closing out the contract, we have to make sure that the MWBE and SDVOB, DBE is in compliance as far as meeting the goals. All the numbers that have been reported are correct.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Good afternoon, everyone. So these slides represent discretionary awards and also legal fee payments. So discretionary procurement is a method of procurement used to level the playing field for MWBEs and SDVOB and small businesses. Small and certified firms compete with one another rather than against large corporations for the supply of goods and services. Discretionary procurement opportunities also allows the MTA to promote diversity in the supply chain and provides a great entry point for these firms to do business with the MTA. As you can see from the numbers, the MTA spends a staggering amount on goods and services valued below $1.5 million. In order to increase awareness, procurement has created an all-agency discretionary procurement opportunities listing on the MTA website, and firms can look at currently available solicitations, register and bid on the opportunities, and in addition, DDCR promotes these opportunities through outreach and encourage new firms to register to do business with the MTA. During FY23 and 24, 16% of awards valued below 1.5 went to MWBEs and 2% went to small business concerns. Additionally, the MTA is consistently incorporating MWBEs in the use of outside legal services, and 16% of payments for outside legal fees went to MWBEs. Okay, next slide. We seek to ensure that certified firms have equal access to the full spectrum of contracting opportunities with the MTA. As you can see, New York State certified MWBEs and SDVOBs are providing services and performing successfully in areas such as MTA's asset fund and underwriting management services. The total assets managed by MWBEs equal $3.28 billion, or 31%. The majority of assets are in traditional asset classes like U.S. equities and real estate, among others, and a small percentage are of alternative investments. Of the 15.8 million spent in total underwriting fees, 35% of those fees went to New York State certified MBEs and SDVOBs. So, these numbers represent the fact that there are opportunities outside of construction for MWBE participation, and we're ensuring that those firms are participating in other areas within the MTA. All right. So we also certify disadvantaged business enterprises, and these slides represent our first quarter certification, and it compares it to 2023. All right, so we are on track to meet and or exceed the number of certifications completed last year, and we've also decreased the average time for firms to process certification by 10 days. So we went from 49 days to 39 days to complete certification. And for our outreach efforts, during the state fiscal year of 23-24, DDCR participated in 42 outside MWBE, SDVOB, and SDVOBE outreach events, and those were sponsored by other agencies and or advocacy groups. Additionally, DDCR held 6 DBE certification workshops virtually and 4 new firm orientation workshops that was also virtual. Over the past year, we met with over 700 firms and have separated them by industry to help us consider areas for development. Empire State Development classifies firms into 4 industries: commodities, construction consulting, and service consulting. Service consulting is a broad category that includes professional services like IT consultants, but it also includes standard services like exterminating, rubbish removal, and a variety of maintenance and repair services. So you'll see here that our outreach efforts netted a significant number of firms in the services industry, with construction-related industries as the second largest group. Okay. And lastly, I wanted to share with you a success story, Quality and Assurance Technology, which they go by Q&A. And Q&A Tech has over 20 years experience in supporting private and public sector clients with design, development, and maintenance of data center solutions, ranging from traditional legacy environments to its state-of-the-art SDDC, software-defined data centers, and provide flexibility with and leverage the hybrid cloud. Moving forward, we will be featuring noteworthy certified firms that make our program great by providing value-added services to the MTA. And this firm began working with the MTA as a subcontractor to Dell and is currently participating in open, competitively solicited procurement opportunities as a prime. In 2023, Q&A bid on and won a 3-year contract valued at $8 million for Varonis software, which protects against cyber attacks. And Q&A also holds other prime contracts with the MTA to provide Dell products and other software licenses and maintenance agreements. Subcontracting opportunities allows firms to gain experience, build capacity, and provides exposure to doing business with the MTA, which can result in the firm's growth and ability to bid on larger contracts and become a prime contractor like Q&A. So we congratulate Q&A for their accomplishments with the MTA thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I don't know if there are any questions from the committee? Okay. Moving on to the Small Business Development Program update, Deputy Chief Cherie Owens, if you could.
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Next slide, please. Thank you. Recruitment of new firms increased by 17%, exceeding the 2023 departmental goal of 10%. In the first quarter of 2024, we held 3 informational outreach sessions with 214 attendees, which is a 50% increase from the entire year of 2023, when we only had 420 attendees. We are currently holding one informational session a month with various advocacy groups to increase the number of newly recruited firms to get pre-qualified for the program. The RFP process is ongoing, and we have received proposals. The Small Business Development Town Hall. The Town Hall event was an exclusive gathering reserved solely for pre-qualified construction firms in the MTA's mentoring and federal programs. It was a unique opportunity for these esteemed contractors to meet with MTA staff members, including our new Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Ms. Lourdes Zapata, and most importantly, to network amongst their peers for possible subcontracting prospects. Approximately 60 firms attended the event, and we were delighted to receive numerous emails expressing gratitude to the MTA for our unwavering commitment to our firms and the growth and success of them being in the program. Thank you. Quarter one activity. I would like to note first that the value of bonding secured should be $60 million instead of $60. So please make that note and adjustment. In quarter one, 3 contracts have been awarded, and several projects are still in the design phase. The number of contracts awarded will increase as each quarter progresses. All contracts in the Small Business Mentoring Program and the Small Business Federal Program are awarded, and they're also managed throughout closeout through C&D. 4 loans have been approved and issued in the first quarter, and we anticipate this number will double by the end of the fourth quarter of 2024, as well as you will see the additional contracts awarded. There are currently 32 firms enrolled in the spring 2024 training class. We are actively participating in MWBE and SDVOB outreach events to increase the number of firms participating in the training program, as well as prepare them for upcoming contracts. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Cherie. Usually we will see an upward trajectory of contracts being awarded as we move forward into the contract year. So even though you only see 3 for the first quarter, we're going to start seeing that increasing as we move on, as time goes on. I don't know if there are any questions from the committee. We're happy to continue our progress.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Have you calculated what impact specifically there will be on MBE contracts in relation to the capital program austerity?
Yeah, well, like all things at the MTA, it's TBD. I think, there's still a lot of recalibration that is going on there with respect to the overall budget and the contract and what projects will be moving forward, which ones will not. And obviously, those will impact our MWBE engagement accordingly. Our goal is always to meet or exceed our 30% goal. So whether we're talking about 30% of 58 million or 30% of 32 million, we want to stick to that 30%, although obviously the hope and expectation and desire was always to go on the higher end.
As you track those numbers for this year, I'd also be interested in the ratio for the percentage that also drops the overall state procurement for WMBEs and disadvantaged business, because we are the largest. We are the largest contract agencies for all of these entities, so it'd be interesting to understand. So we might have a disproportionate impact on the overall community of, WMBEs and disadvantaged businesses and SDVOBs than we have on the overall contracting pie. So it's just something to be, my point is that this can have an impact on equity. That's beyond just what's
Statewide.
happening here at our agency.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are 97 state agencies and authorities, and it takes the next 10 agencies to make up what the MTA spends alone. So absolutely, the impact that the MTA budget will have on the statewide spend will reverberate across the entire state. Right now, we're on reporting 23-24 numbers, so we won't see those numbers. If there's any impact at all, we won't see it until next year. But certainly, we'll be able to report, and the state publishes an annual report of all of the agencies in the state of New York and their spend and their MWBE goal attainment, of which the MTA is one of them. So we'll all be able to see that as publicly available. And we can certainly report back to the committee specifically.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, to the extent we can communicate to, not that they're not following the news, but even maybe more proactively communicating to our community of contractors that might be expecting and relying upon some of this, business who have, taking on financing and, and structure that business around projected revenue of perhaps getting some bids that we might be letting. They should be planning for around that.
Absolutely. So just moving on our agenda, we'll speak to our 2023-24 MTA-wide EEO activities. I'll ask Dr. Green to make that report, please.
Thank you, and I'm going to be brief because I know we're short on time. During the first quarter 2024, MTA hired 1,578 employees. I just want to put a little asterisk out there. Every statistic that we report is through self-identification. So you either self-identified as a male, self-identified as a female, self-identified as an individual with disabilities, or self-identified as a veteran. So all of our information is voluntarily self-identified statistics that the employees have given us. During the same period, we had 1,262 employees separate from the MTA. This gave us a net increase of 105 self-identified females, and an increase of 211 self-identified males. The number of employees who self-identified as a veteran increased by 1, and there were 37 veterans hired and 36 separated. So we do keep an eye on that. So the self-identified veterans during the first quarter, there were 37 hired and 36 that separated, gave us a net increase of 1. Okay, next slide, please. So our current workforce as of the March 31st, 2024, I want to make sure that we know what data we're reporting. Our workforce was comprised of 73,437 employees, of which 19% self-identified as females. That's 14,163. And 73% were minority. 3% were veteran, and 1% self-identified as persons with disabilities. Now, we're going to kind of talk about each of the agencies because we've been asked to kind of give a brief overview of the agencies. So I'm just going to say all of the agencies, when compared to 2023, had a net increase of women in the workplace, individuals who self-identified as females in the workplace, and all of the agencies had a net increase when compared to 2023 for individuals who self-identified as a minority. So we'll just kind of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am, I know it's kind of delicate, self-identifying with sex and ethnicity and stuff, but I do take objection to self-identifying as a veteran. Either you're a veteran or you're not a veteran. No, I mean, seriously, if I didn't serve in the military, I couldn't come to the MTA and say, well, I self-identify as a veteran and have you, count me in on the statistics. On that one particular note, do you verify that these individuals are indeed veterans?
Absolutely. If someone identifies as a veteran, there's paperwork that has to be presented and verified.
Okay.
So
no,
absolutely.
Just wanted to be 100% sure of that. Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Well, and that particular item, would account for, it's part of their work history, would account for, lying on an application. So it would say that, I wouldn't imagine there's a really high instance of, but this survey is separate, right?
Unless someone just does not let us know that they
Right. It's
have
probably
their
underreporting might
veteran
be,
status. So you'd have to let us know your veteran status, and we do verify that. Okay? So again, we're going to quickly look at the B&T workforce. First quarter, it was comprised of 882 employees, of which 20% self-identified as female and 60% self-identified as minorities. Next slide.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry, if you don't mind. Going back to the net changes for employees with disability, do you have any data on that for quarter one? I heard veterans and some of the other social demographics, but not disability. Or maybe I missed it, I'm sorry.
For quarter one, let me look, just one second. We absolutely have the data on it. I can get that for you.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in the book as well.
Yeah, and I should note that the breakdown of this data, this was really just a high-level overview. The breakdown of this data is available in the committee book on pages 80 through 93, and
Okay.
85 gives a detailed demographic breakdown for each employee. So the bigger tables are available, but for the purposes of this presentation, we really stuck to higher levels. We can certainly provide you, if there's something in there that you don't see that you'd like to get, we would most certainly be able to provide that.
Thank you.
And one extra note for our individuals that self-identify as persons with disabilities, we know that the workforce has a lot of employees who just do not self-identify. So I'm 100% sure that although our numbers appear to be a small percentage, we do employ a lot of employees that are individuals with disabilities.
I appreciate that, and I know it's an ongoing struggle at most enterprises. If there are any thoughts, and perhaps at one future committee meeting, we could talk more about nurture campaigns. Something that
Absolutely.
we've tried to tackle at the hospital, and I'd be happy to share best practices.
Okay.
That would be great, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we're up to the C&D workforce. Oh, so B&T, we did have one, B&T, we have one of the Chief EO officers who's not here today. The Chief EO officer for B&T is Joyce Brown. Just want to make sure we identify our officers. For C&D, the workforce comprised of 1,774 employees, of which 32% self-identified as females, and that is great for construction and development areas. And
I'm sorry, Dr. Green.
65%.
The chart mentioned 29% self-identified females? Or is this not the,
C&D.
right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just want to make sure I'm
It
hearing
is
correctly.
29%. Thank you for correcting me there. I'm looking at the notes and not the chart. 29% self-identified as females. And as you can see there, those numbers are pretty consistent from last year. The Chief EO officer for C&D would be myself. I serve as the Chief EO officer for C&D. The Chief EO officer for BUS is Vanessa Moses. You met her a little bit earlier. And as of the first quarter, 11% of the individuals there, of the 3,779 employees, 11% self-identified as female and 89% as male. And for minorities, 86%. New York City Transit, again, the Chief EO officer for New York City Transit is James Keys, pretty new here to the agency, so welcome again, James. Workforce comprised of 47,898 employees, of which 20% self-identified as female, and 83% were minority. Long Island Railroad, that's another one of the EO officers who's not here today. That's Jody Savage. As of the first quarter, their workforce comprised of 7,517 employees, of which 13% self-identified as female and 41% were minority. Then we're on to Metro North, and the Chief EO officer for Metro North again is Myra Bell. As of the first quarter, the workforce was comprised of 6,315 employees, of which 11% self-identified as female and 43% are minority.
Thank you, Dr. Green. I don't know if there are any questions from the committee on the data that was shared. So I know that we do have another piece of the presentation with apologies to Senior Director Cockfield. In the interest of time, we're going to skip that presentation. We'll make sure that we have it for the next one. And please understand, it's not at all minimizing the important work that our employee resource groups do. Unfortunately, we're running tight on schedule. So with that, that concludes our presentation for this committee meeting.
Thank you, Lourdes, and thank you to your staff. I would like to have a motion to adjourn, please. So moved. Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you very
great
much.
afternoon.